Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Have I got a deal for you? One video, 5 things, all linking back to Joseph Parker and his increasingly infamous DUCO events promoter, David Higgins. So one involves DUCO and a none too subtle message over my assessment of the shambolic news conference DUCO staged this week about a potential Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker bout. And also another involving Lucas Brown insinuating Joseph Parker may be on the juice. More on that later. Buckle in, let's go. First cab off the rank. A bout between Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker is close to being made, according to Joshua's promoter Eddie Hearn, who told IFL TV him and Higgins are not a million miles away from making a deal. He has made it clear Parker will not get 35% of all net profit, which is what Parker and his team stated as their bottom line. But Hearn has acknowledged that Parker is worth more than 25%. So that part is new, and in the context of what has been said publicly, it's actually a good signal. And that Hearn's view of negotiations in general was, we're close. He did suggest if Joshua kept the UK pay-per-view and Parker kept the New Zealand pay-per-view revenue, that a deal would probably already be done by now. It could get done faster. The tone from Hearn in this interview, it definitely was a lot more positive. It had shifted from where it had been previously, and the impression that was given was that this unification matchup, it could be very well made and very soon. We have to watch this space. Now, transitioning into story thread number 2, the world's media has reacted to another David Higgins press conference special, with column inches galore dissecting the haphazard event yesterday. From the odd Joshua video that was played, to the grainy cell phone quality of the internet stream and the sort of shakiness and just the bizarreness of that, to Higgins and his all-round brazen and odd behaviour. And if you haven't caught up with what happened, I'll put a link to my breakdown video at the end of this one. And the comment section for that video, it blew up, and the vast majority were questioning what was going on with Higgins and his behaviour. But I did notice as soon as news started to come out that a fight might be close, this is the stuff from Eddie Hearn, there were a few more comments being made, well, if this fight does get made, perhaps Higgins is actually a genius. And along with the world's media, Eddie Hearn, he reacted saying the DUCO boss, he was off his Swede. The presser was filmed in a broom cupboard, and his 8-year-old daughter could have done a better video presentation. Remember, that was designed to rack Joshua up. It was rare footage of Joshua being dropped, supposedly according to DUCO. What it was some clips and interviews of people who'd either floored Joshua or rumoured to have floored him in sparring. But like Hearn also said, it was so bad, it got people talking. And that actually was a good thing, or has been a good thing. So from that perspective, I mean, you've seen all these different headlines that have run in the background here. It's actually been a massive success. Was it by design? Maybe. I mean, people are talking more about Joseph Parker, and actually more than just Joseph Parker, they're talking more about David Higgins, his behaviour, what happened. It's put the spotlight on Higgins and co, and, you know, by default, the fight to some degree. So Higgins, he actually noted to New Zealand media that people are talking about the fight as a result of the press conference. So for him, it was a good result. And I half agree with the, people are talking about the fight thing, but it's only true to a point. People are more talking about how embarrassing the news conference was, and some were even questioning, why is Parker allowing this sort of carry on to continue? And while the saying all publicity is good publicity is true, it is also true to say that cringe-worthy events like that do also leave a bit of stank on everyone involved, including Parker. I mean, just go back to the comments. There was a thread coming through. A lot of people were going, what is Parker doing here, allowing this carry on to happen? Remember though, this is now the third such controversial and unusual news conference Higgins has orchestrated in the past 3 months. Remember, he used the same shock tactics for one involving Huey Fury, and also that was back in, was it September? And there was another press conference of a similar nature to this one just 2 weeks ago. How many times can he keep going back to the well like this and achieve the same success? It's got to wear off at some point. So, it's an open question. Will the shock tactics keep working? And if you've watched my breakdown, you know that I wasn't shy about going in on Higgins and co for another shambolic effort, which really was cringe-worthy viewing. It had the feel of a last-minute disjointed rush job, and that's because it was. But it was my honest opinion, and I covered off the main highlights through lengthy clips that were from the event. So with that in mind, you might actually think it was a bit brazen of me, on the back of that, to approach DUCO about a Lucas Brown matter relating to Joseph Parker. So more on that in a moment. And maybe it was brazen of me to go back to them, considering I'd just done a somewhat critical video of their news conference. So, to my surprise though, DUCO were very keen to get across in its response to the Brown thing. They covered that off, but they wanted to get into some matters relating to the presser coverage and subsequent events. So, I do like to give DUCO a fair suck of the sav, because they're pretty good to me when I go to them for comment on things. So, we'll get their point across here, and I'll get into the statements. Communications Director Craig Stanaway, he directed me to the IFL interview which I've already mentioned, saying, "You will notice Eddie barely addresses the glass chin statements and prefers to deflect on peripheral issues. The issues raised in the press conference, though, have been picked up by credible websites like BBC and Dan Raphael at ESPN with fair and balanced coverage." Dagger to my heart. You know what the inference there is, right? Anyway, Stanaway continues. The key Hearn comments are as follows. Outside of New Zealand TV, what he's bringing is a belt, and we have to respect that and pay him for that. There's an opportunity here for Joseph Parker to make a huge amount of money, and also if he wins, be the hottest thing in the heavyweight division. So we feel we're being very fair. We're giving him a great opportunity as well. And we appreciate and respect he's a belt holder as well. But if he really wants this fight, he will take the fight. If not, he will yap, and Higgins will yap, and they'll fight Lucas Brown for $1 million, if that. So what it comes down to is how much ambition you've got and how much you really believe it. Because if you believe you're going to knock out Anthony Joshua, like you keep saying, he's got a glass chin, he's this, he's that, take the fight, mate. For a load of millions and probably double your money in your next fight if you win. But as AJ always does, he will go about his work and deal with Joseph Parker if he steps up and takes the fight for the spring. Is it 25-75? No. I think it's probably undervaluing Joseph Parker. They are definitely getting a lot of profile out of Joshua's name, which is smart. I want to make the fight because I want David Higgins over here. I think he will be hilarious. I would love to do some press conferences with David Higgins. There's a deal to be done with Joseph Parker, which makes him a lot of money. But more importantly, if what he says is true, he should take the fight because the win gives him a massive 8-figure payday for the next one. If they think they can knock out Anthony Joshua, they should take the fight. And those are the key things that DUCO wants you to know from the IFL interview with Eddie Hearn and some of the things he was saying. Some interesting points there, so you may not need to go see the IFL interview if you haven't already. But anyway, in respect of Lucas Brown, the reason I emailed DUCO was Brown gave an interview to T2T Boxing, which is on YouTube. In it, Brown makes a comment that can be interpreted as Joseph Parker has previously been on performance-enhancing substances. And for good measure, he also chucks in there that Joseph Parker is the weakest of the 3 champions. His statements is about 5.5 minutes into the interview. You can go find that if you want to check it out. He says, he hasn't looked good since Ruiz. I thought Ruiz won that fight, and he hasn't really looked good since. Prior to that, he was very fast, very sharp, very strong, and looked better. In the weigh-ins and stuff, he softened up. A little bit like that. There's a lot of speculation behind that, of course, which I'm not going into, but I don't think he's looked good. And for good measure, He also said, "Nothing against the kid, but I think he's the weakest champion." So DUCO, its official statement in response to that is, it has been company policy for some time to never comment on rumour, innuendo or speculation. In keeping with that long-established policy, we aren't going to dignify any rumour, innuendo or speculation from anyone with a response. Fair enough too, I guess. My take on this is I'm not sure that there's enough anecdotal evidence or any evidence actually floating around to suggest Parker is using PEDs. In fact, in here, he has passed every single drug test that he's ever taken, although he did miss one, but that was an administrative error. It's interesting though that, to say the least, that Brown, who is the stank of 2 PED cases connected to him, would actually throw that out there about Parker. And I note that Sporting Icons mentioned on a stream with KiwiBox today on KiwiBox's channel that Brown had said a similar thing to him about Parker some months back. So obviously he's got that on his mind. Very interesting indeed. What do you make of that? What do you make of the reaction to the David Higgins Joseph Parker press conference? What DUCO is saying? And do you really believe that the fight is close? Drop a comment loud and often, hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.